been waiting, elevating, hanging on a line. Hate to say it, your new favorite's going out of style. Threw away those broken heroes. They're just wooden wires. Hallelujah, spread the news, but don't believe the hype. But if this is our last time, make up your mind. I've waited a lifetime to live. It's time to ignite. I'm making a fire. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter, from deep in the bowels of our underground lair, where the passage of time affects us a whole lot less than Kamala Harris. How you doing?
Profound, Jay. Profound.
Yeah.
I
got nothing.
I'm doing peaches and cream till we start a podcast, as always. You know.
Yeah.
And I'm Jay. I'm one that hates negativity, but if we're gonna do shows on politics, which we've done now for 6 years, it's just gonna continue.
Well, if we changed our format, I think we'd lose a lot of listeners.
Yeah. Plus, it's just, it's the negative stuff that you just have to laugh at, make fun of, and continue to try to change, even if you stroke out in the meantime, which I think I might. I might drop dead during this show.
Well, let's not do that.
No, I'll come back alive for next week's show. So don't worry.
I see.
I'm under contract now for another year, so
I'll get the shock paddles ready.
just throw water on me and then shock me. I'll be fine. And what was the song again?
You were not going to make a guess at it first?
I already forgot it, so I guess I can't. Nirvana.
You're actually close.
Okay, hold on. What are the kind of Green Day?
No.
Let me think of one. Smashing Pumpkins.
No.
Soundgarden.
No.
Let me think. Rage on the Machine.
Rage Against the Machine?
Right.
No.
Pantera.
No.
White Zombie.
No.
The Jim Rose Circus.
You know what? They're not even a music act. What? They even exist anymore?
I seen them once.
I did not.
There was a guy who went through the tennis racket.
Yeah?
Slinky or Elastic Man or whatever they called him.
Yeah, I had no interest in seeing the Jim Rose Circus.
I had no choice. I was waiting for, believe it or not, I went to White Zombie and Pantera.
Yeah.
Which I was down in the mosh pit,
Huh.
which was interesting, but maybe it's my size or whatever. Nobody really messed with me, but my few friends got elbowed and we actually got in a fight.
Yeah.
And got sent to a timeout over a cigarette. Just don't ask. Okay. It was bad. Okay. I don't know, but Nirvana with Pearl Jam.
No.
Okay. All right. I give up.
The song is Making a Fire from Foo Fighters.
Oh, that was my next guess.
The drummer of Nirvana, ironically, the drummer of Foo Fighters just passed away, Taylor Hawkins, and so that's in honor
I
of
heard
him.
that. Yeah. Okay.
Sad. He was not the drummer.
Oh,
He was the
okay.
singer. Yes.
He played left-handed. That was something I noticed.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Just people say I don't pay attention to details.
Yeah.
Okay, but if you look on the cover of their Unplugged CD, there's Kurt Cobain playing left-handed.
Yes.
Things, so I do notice things, no matter what anybody says. Okay.
Okay.
Jay.
Oh, hey, I want to make one announcement before we go into anything else. Yeah, so we read these lyrics at the beginning of the show, something to do with the show, and it goes up on our Community Solutions Music from the Podcast playlist on Spotify. I'm going to throw up a bonus song this week. Every time we start one of these episodes, we play a song. That song is by me, actually. It's one of my old bands that I was in, but the song is called Everything, and I'm going to put that as a bonus on the podcast playlist this
Now,
week.
what band was that you were part of?
Fastest Turbo Fire Engine.
Yes. Explains your email address.
Yes, it does. Thanks for giving that
Yeah.
out.
I just thought maybe I should say that. Now you're the one-man band, Jay.
Yeah.
Okay, but there was a time where you had friends, right?
Yeah, that's a complicated topic. Yes.
At some point we're gonna have to have a chat about that because I don't know a lot of it. I don't know a lot of your music history.
Yeah.
I mean, it went from you quitting being a teacher to all the things you've done in between.
Well, I was doing stuff when I was teaching too. I was still performing and traveling, and yeah.
Well, I remember you going down to Vegas. I remember that.
Yeah,
playing down there. I mean, that was a long time, 10 years ago now. But I mean,
right? Was it that long ago?
Oh, it was something like
Oh
that.
my goodness!
It's around the time you went to Haiti. I remember you were going down there once in a while. Around that time, that's got to be something like 10 years ago.
That was 2010 when I went to Haiti.
Yeah.
So,
holy cow! All right.
yeah.
So, bonus song. I'll get the artist right that time.
Okay.
Jay, baseball season is upon us.
Yes.
But if you're one of the 3 people who live in Anoka County and take the light rail down to the Target Field, you're not going to be able to now. There's a little hissing,
nice.
a little lover's spat going on between Metro Transit and Anoka County.
Well, if we can't get those 2 kids together, I don't know what we're going to do.
I know we need Chuck Woolery to come on and do a love connection. They need to go on a blind date again. Here's what I don't get, Jay.
Yeah.
We're getting this from KSTP.com. The headline is Metro Transit suspends Northstar service to Twins games. Well, doesn't it still go downtown?
Yeah.
So if it still goes downtown, how do you suspend service to the Twins? Because in the very same article, near the bottom, it says, despite the suspension of services to Twins games, daily commuter rides on Northstar, which offer service between Big Lake and downtown Minneapolis, with stops in Elk River, Ramsey, Anoka, Coon Rapids, and Fridley, won't be affected. So if you can go downtown, how do you not go to a Twins game?
Well, maybe the problem is getting back. Maybe you can get downtown if you go early enough, but maybe getting back is really the problem. Maybe they're going to change their hours. I don't know.
So they're not going to run it at 10, 11 o'clock at night, or in baseball now, 3 in the morning?
Right.
When the games end? Apparently, Anoka County is withholding funds. Oh, they're defunding Northstar. Why they ever chose to fund it to begin with, I'd like an explanation.
Yeah.
And Metro Transit claims it can't take on the extra costs. Oh, no. They just don't have enough money. Boo. Anoka County disputes that, noting it's one of 5 funding sources for Northstar, and Metro Transit has the sole authority in deciding what trips it will provide. I'm going to say that the woke Minnesota Twins pick up the tab for that.
Yeah, you think so, huh?
Well, they were part of its construction costs.
Yeah.
Why, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if they will or not. Seeing as the area that Northstar comes from to get downtown is in between 80 and 85% white, I don't know if they will.
But
nothing too woke about that.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, we'll see if, despite the signing of Carlos Correa, the Twins are still spending about $10-12 million less than the opening day last year. So they got the extra money from their self-imposed salary cap.
They could sign Chick Corea. And
Well, you're telling me Jim Pohlad can't write that off?
Oh, I'm sure.
So, I mean, I would expect this to be made. I mean, if nobody's going to Twins games, nobody's roiding Northstar literally.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty much dead outside of that. I mean, it's dead already.
Yes.
But it's pretty much dead outside of anything.
But we're not going to learn our lesson and stop building light rail. Oh, no. We'll just on to the next line.
That's right. Keep going.
Yes.
At this point, Metro Transit would like to be able to provide more Northstar service, including to Twins games, but cannot prudently take on the additional costs of doing so without Anoka County. Metropolitan, blah, blah, blah. That's a Metro Transit spokesperson. Must be, they got a spokesperson, Metro Transit.
Yeah.
Can't go to them. We got to hire somebody to talk to the media. Like Metro Transit's that interesting.
Right. Oh, Well, maybe the spokesperson is interesting and the people who sit on the Met Council are not. Maybe
Well,
that's the problem.
there's a lot to that. Here's what I don't
Yes.
understand. How do they know? Northstar started its service in 2010, blah, blah, blah. In 2019, so we're going pre-COVID,
Yeah.
Northstar gave 81,561 rides to 64 Twins games. Well, what happened to the other 17?
Yeah. I don't know.
And secondly, how do they know they all went to Twins games? So
Beats
somebody
to me.
couldn't have gotten off at that stop and
Right.
done something else?
Yeah. I mean, granted, there are very few things to do downtown anymore, and
True.
less by the day.
Yeah, I mean, I won't disagree with that, but
You'd have to be out of your mind to go downtown pretty much at this point.
well, I'm planning on catching a ball game or two this year, but
Well,
outside of that,
Take
then
out a life insurance policy.
I got one, except the beneficiary is my wife, who will probably be with me.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I don't know who my secondary beneficiary is. I better check that because I plan on hitting a Saints game too. So,
Right.
and old Melvin Kata still in charge over there. Who knows? Who knows what that'll be like? And of course, you got the Summer of Love coming up. It'll be, I'm sure it'll be war in the streets, as it always seems to be. That's the only good thing about when it's like -20 out. There's not very many drive-by shootings because nobody's out and walking around.
Well, not in this area, anyways. I think in Minneapolis, you've still got your share of them.
Yeah, death never takes a holiday.
No, it does not.
That's awful. How can you say something like that? Things you get away with on this show, I'll tell you what.
Well, maybe YouTube will cancel another episode, except that it's not aptly named like the price of free speech.
You know what? I'm still. I'd like to know. By the way, do you think anyone from YouTube actually listened to the show?
Oh no, no. I'm sure it was all computer run and some sort of translation device and looking for keywords. And
Well, again, I encourage people to listen to that show, and you tell any of us what we said. First off, you're either a bastion of free speech or you're not.
yeah,
Okay, you don't get to. Free speech isn't a buffet line. You get to walk down and pick what you like and don't like. But I thought it was. It's funny, we recorded, and that wasn't that long ago. We recorded that. I walked away thinking that was a great episode.
yes, it was.
I mean, I love the episodes where you and I can just shoot from the hip. And, obviously some episodes require numbers and research and stories. And we always try to give where we find our information to people so they know we're not completely full of it. But that show, show about censorship, a show about how, the media and big tech and business and government are all working together, and how it will trickle down. It'll trickle down to the local level too.
Right.
And if it's up, look, where do you think these people learn from? They learn from their lords and masters, who of course are the people they want to be, which are the state and federal government.
Right.
So, I don't know, pretty bad all around. But you're right. I mean, and I love how you teased it on that episode. Because, I didn't know until you didn't tell me beforehand.
No, I did not.
I learned about it the same way everybody in the audience learned about it.
Yeah.
So it was well done. Good radio.
Yes, absolutely.
Good radio, and screw you, YouTube. How about that? Take that off. Take that off your platform.
Yeah.
By the way,
Yes.
I told you about the flags that I got on Spotify.
Yeah.
So I believe that episode was also, Community Solutions was also flagged.
Really?
What they do is they flag, they put like a little COVID-19 note
Yeah.
on there. If you want more information about COVID, it must be like their little, that one. I could be wrong, but that one also got flagged. What was that called again?
The price of free
Okay,
speech.
it did not. It did not get
okay.
flagged.
Okay.
But like I said, I got 2 episodes flagged. I kind of wear it as a badge of honor.
That is pretty good for a new podcast like yours to be able to get flagged. I mean, you think about it.
They'd flagged. In fact, I'm going to say something else.
Yes.
They flagged another.
Really?
I didn't notice this. But the episode I had Sam Deal on, the attorney for the youth sports, that also got flagged.
Really? Yep. So, like 1/9 of your podcasts are flagged. That's a pretty good chunk.
Damn. And how does the episode with Eric Mortensen not get flagged? We talked about impeaching the governor.
I suppose they don't get down to that level. You know, they don't care about a governor or whatever for the most part, unless his name's Ron DeSantis. Then they probably care.
But I mean, poor Ann Bauer had innocently. Harmless Ann got flagged. And then, of course, Kevin Roche, which I'm not surprised at.
Yeah.
Even though I had a great time with Kevin.
Yeah, that was a fun show for sure.
Yeah, and we'll have to have him back at some point too, because he's another must follow on Twitter. A must follow, the Healthy Skeptic. Jay.
Yes.
For today, it's kind of a special treat when we go back. And you and I have been talking for a long time about going back to past episodes and sort of speaking more on a subject, and this is kind of, I kind of humbly admit this, but, when we first started podcasting, it took us a while to, get a pattern down. I remember the first episode, we went like an hour and a half. I had to pee and we were out of breath, and now that's become the norm. But some of those first episodes where we, touched on subjects, explained a few things here and there. Well, 5 years have gone by, 6 now, or in season 6. And you and I both think that it's necessary to sort of go back and re-teach, if you will, re-explain some stuff. Because, you and I talk a lot in like terms that we understand. Mm-hmm. And we don't always, it's kind of like 2 professors talking to each other.
Yes.
And all the people listening are kind of following along, maybe don't quite know, so on and so forth. And it's necessary to stop, and I don't mean to talk down to the audience, but, I like to put 6 things in simple terms. I like to make sports analogies.
Yeah.
And so, again, it is time to go back and kind of look at some of those episodes and explain some things in like greater detail. You can't explain some things in 20 minutes.
No. These are concepts that took us years to learn sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to those, I'm still laughing at my podcast here getting flagged. But.
Yeah, well, it's an honor the way I look at it in today's day and age.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it just kind of thinks, even me and you, that's kind of my reaction.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to have, a guy like Tucker Carlson who has an audience of millions.
Right.
To get, chastised, but even you and I,
with our tens of millions,
our tens of hundreds. So, Jay, let me ask you this:
Yes.
Where do we start here? Where do we start with explaining stuff? You want to start with the finances, or where do you want to start?
Well, I think the best way to break it down is, when you look at a city, a county, and often school districts, they have a budget every year. I mean, and that's including school districts. They have a budget that they set every year. That's like their operating levy. They don't go into a lot of detail about other things, but we get this misnomer that those are all we pay in taxes, whatever shows up on that budget, and then what comes in our mailbox, saying here's how your property taxes break down. That we think that's it. But yet we have found in our extensive research that no, local governments find many ways to take your money.
And by the way,
Yes.
I want to say something about that. One of the things that helped perpetuate that was levy limits.
Yes.
I mean, we did a whole show way back when, on I don't know what number, on levy limits and how so many people, particularly on the right, support them. And I think they're disastrous.
Well, they gave us franchise fees.
But it removes local accountability. I mean, that's the
Right.
number one thing that it does. And by the way, I know I've said this before, but here's what I'd like the legislature to do.
Yeah.
Put a levy limit on themselves.
You'll never see that.
Yeah, of course not.
No.
Vote to give themselves normal health insurance, I think the rest of us have.
Yeah.
Instead of voting to give. See, here's my thing. You want to solve health? I know of course I'm going off subject. You want to solve health insurance? Solve this by giving us the same insurance you get, or you come down to us.
Yes.
What do you want to bet? We would be up to them in no time. You never hear anybody in Congress complain about their pension,
Oh, no.
their health insurance.
Oh, no.
They can vote to give it to themselves. I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
And speaking of local government, I wish I could just levy my boss anytime I wanted something.
Right.
I wish I could do that.
Yeah. I just got a brand new big screen TV, 4K, all of it. I'm going to need you to give me about...
No, we're going to bond for it. We're going to
Right.
put a bond for it, and you're going to pay me back with interest.
Right.
Okay, so
Oh, go ahead.
you mentioned the budget.
Yes.
And you mentioned the operating level.
And I think that's a good place to start, is explaining that, and we can kind of get into what debt is, how it works, and then how there's all this stuff that we don't even see on the budget.
Well, let me also say this, that there's the operating levy is part of the budget.
Right.
There's the budget, the general operating budget. Okay.
Yes.
Now follow me, Herb Carneal, if you're scoring at home, follow me here. Stick with me. There is a revenue,
Yeah.
and there's an expense side. Okay, now on the revenue side, your local government gets money from more sources than you think. Okay. Typically, the property tax levy is the largest. Now, how much they get varies from city to city. I've seen it where it's half or even less. And I've seen it where it's 70, 80% of that budget is from that levy.
Yeah.
Maybe even more than that. Typically, but first off, I want to say another thing too. Every city gets state money. Okay, this idea that you don't get anything, blah, blah, blah. The city's whining that other cities get money. There's some truth to that, but every city gets state money. Para money, which is 20% subsidized. I'll explain that. That is the public employee retirement accounts. It's 20% subsidized by the state of Minnesota. There's intergovernmental revenue, LGA being the biggest part, but there's other things in that, state aid roads, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Obviously, you mentioned franchise fees, which about a little less than half the cities in Minnesota put on citizens, including Plymouth, where I live. I pay them. I do see them at the end of my bills. Some people don't look that far, but believe me, I do. My hometown and your current town, Jay, Crystal, does not have them. They're one of the few cities around this area that doesn't.
Yep.
Very few.
It's what it feels like to have a good mayor and good city council. I'll tell
They've
you,
discussed it many a time, and I can confirm that.
Yes. At least a good majority of the city council. I can't call them all good.
I plead the fifth.
Yeah.
There's licenses, permits. Many of those things are for businesses. That's not what it's limited to. My favorite part is how the city will charge you to do something like redo your driveway. You know, Jay, if you want to get a permit to have somebody re-blacktop your driveway, you have to pay the city to do that.
Yep.
Isn't that incredible?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, maintain your home, but we're going to make it more expensive for you to do so.
Yes.
You know, good luck putting in new windows, too. You want to talk about something expensive?
Oh,
They add to it.
absolutely.
They do it. It's sick. But they get that handbook from the League of Minnesota Cities, and that's what it says do. Charge this, so they charge it.
Mm-hmm.
And there are other little sources of revenue as well. The city may or may not. I've seen cities kind of do all over the place. Revenue coming in from park and rec stuff, from community center,
Yeah.
from pools. Even though they typically don't pay for themselves, there's still a revenue part that comes in. They may classify that 100 different ways.
Municipal golf courses and liquor stores.
Absolutely. Typically, they are spelled out.
Yeah.
It's pretty rare to not see something like that specified. You know, they'll want to claim that they're making money
Right.
somehow. So
Not like some pools we know where the concession stand loses money.
yeah, exactly. And the council laughs about it. An unforgettable work session. There's just some things that you'll never forget. I'll never forget where I was hearing that. Okay. So that is the revenue side. Now, I want to point out what's not there,
Okay.
because we'll get to that. But what's not there, capital purchases, construction projects, buildings, the maintenance may be there, but the building of them won't be. Special assessments, mill and overlay projects, bonding, money you owe on pensions or on whatever else,
Right.
you will not find in the budget. Expense side. Okay, the number one cost for municipal government, forget what level, is people. However you say it, doesn't matter. And typically, their pay and benefits are the vast majority of expenses.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have operating costs. They pay an electric bill. They pay for gas in the police cars and in the street sweepers, and maintenance on the operating maintenance on their parks, things like that. A lot of that will also be on the budget. Any contract work that they send out. Might be some IT things. New equipment can be tricky. If it is an operating thing, like let me put it to you this way: you want to get a new holster or a new pair of handcuffs for a police officer, that comes out of the budget. A new police car is not there.
No.
Okay, so it's it's not simple. Some of this is not necessarily the fault of the municipality. There are state laws that do pertain here. I still think the cities and the counties and the school districts do a crappy job of explaining it and putting it so it's easy to understand.
Yes.
Because, Jay, I know the first time you and I looked at these things, it may as well have been written in Swahili.
Yeah, it took a little while, didn't it? One of my cousins is kind of in the finances world when it comes to like business finance, and he looked at it and he was like, I think this is what it means, but did you remember that? I mean, This was like talking way back like 2010.
Yeah, maybe even before that.
Maybe before that, yeah. And even there, it was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the way that works, but you know, it's I've got questions too, so it is kind of screwy the way that they put it together.
I think what's amazing too is how many people on city councils don't understand it.
Yeah.
They kind of just vote for what's in front of their face.
Well, they trust the staff.
Well, and there's nothing wrong with that in theory. But to me, if I'm running a business, okay, I need to understand everything that's in front of me. I can farm the details out to somebody else.
Yeah.
But I better get it. Okay, it's my business.
Mm-hmm.
The IRS comes after me. They don't come after, the guy working for me.
Right.
So if I don't understand it, the law doesn't allow ignorance. So if you're going to vote to, levy somebody or raise something, and you can't explain it to them,
Yeah.
that looks about as bad as it could.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Ask city staff. They told us to approve it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the problem when the staff runs a city is that, and let's explain it this way, how this works, because there's two different ways to budget. One is called zero-based budgeting. Right. And so with that, every year you start at zero, and then you have to say, okay, here's what I think I need to run my department for this year. And they take all of that together and come up with what they think, is that number, that magic number it's going to take to run the city. The other way, would you like to explain that way to us?
The baseline budgeting?
The baseline budgeting.
Baseline budgeting is where you start at what you got last year.
And that's the way almost everybody does it.
I think that I don't know if there's a government anywhere that does zero-based budgeting.
Let me tell you this. Even when I was in college, I was president of InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. My budget was baseline budgeted. I had to spend for a club. I had to spend every dollar in order to make sure that I got that at minimum for the next year.
And I'm going to tell you something, too. I used to sell uniforms.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't say this, but since I haven't worked there for 6 years, I can say this now. In December,
yes,
we used to get phone calls from police departments like, yeah, God, I got $5,000 I got to spend. What can I get? Can I get some vests? Can I get more shirts?
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, from all over, because they had to justify it.
Uh-huh.
Or the council, hey, there was $5,000 you didn't spend. You don't need it.
Right.
They'd come in, they'd buy extra equipment, they'd buy a bunch of crap they didn't need. But it happened all the time in November, December.
Ugh.
So, yeah, it happens like you wouldn't believe. So there's not much worry about the taxpayers sitting in those meetings. But I'm going to tell you something else. Here's the other problem.
Yes.
The other problem that I've got is that why are the department heads doing this? Why are they, to me, what the council should be doing is saying, okay, this is what we're going to give you.
Yes.
You go figure out the details.
Yep.
Because that's what happens at a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
You got $5 million next year for your department. You go figure out who to hire, who to fire. You go figure out how many pencils you need or how many staplers or rolls of butt wipe, whatever. You figure that out.
Yeah.
I'm not going to micromanage that. But what happens often is the opposite. The police, and look, I'm not knocking police chiefs or fire chiefs. I understand they're there to represent they think what they do is very important, and it is very important.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to maintain their level of service or whatever. I don't know. I understand like a manager going to fight for their guys to get and gals to get more. I get that. But I have seen it where, and I won't mention the cities, but I have seen it where they literally come up and say, yeah, we need 8 more handcuffs, and they're $19.99 a piece. And the city council, you only need 6. I've seen that level of micromanaging before.
Yeah.
Which, again, is
ridiculous
to me off track of where you should be.
Right.
What does the council know about how many handcuffs That's the police chief's job to figure out how many they need and who should get them.
Right.
So I think they do it all wrong. And I think the other part, this is kind of not their fault because of state law and how you have to pass a levy and put that out there. They figure out what they want to spend.
Yeah.
Then they figure out how they're going to get it. So it's the proverbial, okay, we had a $10 million budget last year.
Yeah.
We got a $10.5 million budget this year. Okay, how do we get it? Where do we get that $500,000?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of starting with what they have, the equivalent of this is you work out your expenses for the month personally.
Yes.
You say, okay, I want to put a little money in the bank at the end of the month or have some in case of an emergency. And then you go bill your boss. That's not how it works. The boss pays you and says, hey, ain't my problem if your dog's sick. You go figure that out.
Right.
You can go without new underwear for the month.
Right.
I don't know, whatever.
Go to Caribou 5 times less.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Make coffee at home. I mean, so to me, that's where it's really, really backwards, is that they figure out expenses and then they go, okay, so what do we do? How do we get there? How do we, and it's amazing because money comes from.
Right.
So then that encourages them to think up other evil ways, naughty ways.
Yes.
To get more money.
It's 3-card Monty is what it is. It's like, I'm going to show you the budget, but don't look what's going on to the right or the left.
Hear no evil, see no evil.
Right. Don't look at what we're doing. Don't look at the other hand. Watch this. Watch the budget.
Yeah. That's right. The right hand and the left hand don't need to meet each other.
Right. So, I mean, anyways, so with the budget, we've got these two different ways of budgeting, zero-based and baseline. And obviously we're proponents of zero-based because then you're spending what you need every year and there's no guarantee that you're going to lose money next year or you're going to, have more the next year. You just make a case for how much you need, which I think is a far more responsible way of like living in fear that you're not going to get the same amount of money next year because then that's going to decrease your budget. But so you've got those two ways of budgeting, and so we've got all these different things that appear in a budget, and those are what show up on the property tax statement, and so that is the main thing that your average resident or citizen will see.
Yeah, and you'll see it twice a year.
Yeah.
You should mention that too, because they have to, and I know we've said this in other podcasts, but it's worth repeating. They have to pass preliminary budgets.
Yes.
In September. And that will be the statement that gets mailed to you in November.
Yes.
And then December, with the lie and taxation hearing, they have to pass a final budget by December 31st. That's the statement you get. You should have gotten it about 2 weeks ago. March or April is usually when that comes. And then technically, if you don't escrow, there's a May 15th payment and there's an October 15th payment. Mm-hmm. Municipalities budget January 1st to December 31st, which is funny because state and federal governments don't do that.
Right.
The federal government, the budget starts October 1st. In fact, what they call fiscal year 23 will start October 1st. And then the state, of course, starts on July 1st.
Yes.
Of the odd year. So we are in the next quote-unquote biennium will start July 1st, 2023.
Yes.
So that's some boring, synopsis there of what is in a budget. Now,
we should also mention, budgets run from, and you kind of alluded to this, from January 1st to December 31st. Mm-hmm. That's the way that it works. That the annual year's budget.
Right. And what they're discussing. So, for example, what they're going to discuss this year is the budget for 2023.
Right.
So it's always next year's stuff, next year's budget. Now you'd think that what we just explained would not be so complicated.
But it is.
Because your budget may be 100 pages.
Yes.
And what we just explained is really all you need to know. You don't need to know a whole lot more than that. But the budget will be filled with crap.
Yes.
Just crap. Some cities, counties, and school districts will do this too, maybe to a lesser extent. Well, counties not, but maybe school districts will have these funds. They'll have X amount in the funds. Now, the funds typically are in the CAFR, but not always.
Right.
Because you can have funds in the budget saved up for a rainy day.
Mm-hmm.
You can have them saved up for operating expenses and so on and so forth. So there's all these funds. There's a general fund. There's a sewage fund, water fund, typically, which your water bill. And again, that's it'll be the utility
right.
part. I don't think I mentioned that you'll see in revenue.
Street lights.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, they may name that something different in every budget. That's another unfortunate thing.
Any organized garbage collection.
Exactly. It will all have its own fund. It'll have its own money coming out. They can move money from here and there. They can take water money and move it to, something else if they want to. Nothing really stops them from that. It's not all going to one place and going out another. It's not all, it's like at home, how it all goes in your checking account and all goes out one. Reconciling these government checkbooks is not an easy task.
No, it's not. It's funny too, because if you suggest to a government, hey, you've got this money over in this fund, you could move over here to cover this thing in cash. Oh, we can't move that. That's crazy. But yet they do it all the time. Yeah. All the time.
Well, it would also is funny is I have heard the same argument in favor of bonding. We've got money in this fund, so we're not going to move it to this fund. We're going to bond instead, even though we have the cash somewhere else.
Right.
I got the money in my savings account, but I can't put it into my checking account.
Yeah.
Instead, I got to put it on the credit card. So they argue both ways all the time. They'll argue it one way and they'll argue it another.
Right.
It's kind of like, I remember it was hilarious watching some candidates talk about, we had to bond because we can't move money between funds. Well, that's interesting. So if you save up money, think of it personally, Jay. You save up money for new golf clubs.
Yes.
You got your golf club fund, okay, in your head. Maybe you've set it aside in a coffee can or something, and your water heater goes out. Mm-hmm. Well, I can't take money from my golf club fund,
right?
So I better get the credit card out to get the new water heater,
right?
Even though I got cash sitting right there, which one's more important?
Well, apparently the golf clubs.
I guess so. You think bathing once a month might be more important,
yeah, maybe.
But I've heard government make every argument imaginable to not do something.
Yes.
Even if it makes sense to move money, they don't want to. If it doesn't make sense, they will want to.
Yes.
It's just, you know what I've learned? Let me just say this. What I've learned is whatever government says, the opposite is probably the truth.
Yeah.
Government says something, the opposite is probably right.
Yeah. That's a good call.
If you hear a politician say, I did not have sex relations with that woman, not a single time, never. I never told anyone to lie. What do you think the real truth is?
Yeah.
180 degrees the opposite. Okay, so when you hear a government say something, assume they're 100% wrong.
Yeah. 10 days to slow the curve.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whatever. So anyhow,
okay.
That's a long-winded look at your budget. And again, I just want to say this just so nobody goes bananas on us. Things may be labeled differently. Your city may not have franchise fees. City might not have a liquor store. So if you're looking for the liquor store fund, it might not be there.
Right.
Okay, so, understand that to begin with. Now, Jay, there's a lot of stuff, though, that they don't put in there.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I got to tell this, too. The first time I looked at Crystal's budget, now this is like 2008.
Yeah.
And we'll get to the special assessments here in a minute, but we'll get to that. It's like, hey, phase 8, phase 9, where is it? I can't find it. I looked all over the budget for it. It ain't there.
Right.
And that's when I was told by the city, well, that's not where you find it.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely money coming in.
I said, so and at the time it was like a $3,600 special assessment. Like, so $3,600, and which was, like 5 times the size of somebody's city property tax portion. That's not in the budget. No,
right.
we put it over here. Put it in this bucket, not in that bucket.
Right.
And that bucket is, Jay, I'm setting you up. Where do they put it?
Well, you go find that in what's called a Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or CAFR.
Boo.
Now, this is...
I'm kidding.
This is different from the budget because, well, the budget shows operating expenses and the revenue. This shows everything.
Best way to explain it. Think of yourself. You make your car payment every month.
Yes.
That's on your budget. What you owe on the car is in your comprehensive annual financial report.
Yes.
So if you make a $400 payment and you owe $10,000, the $10,000 won't show up in your budget.
No.
That'll be on your CAFR.
Yes.
Okay. Plus the interest
Mm-hmm.
and a schedule, if you want them, and that's where it will show up. You can do that with anything. Your mortgage payment, anything you have debt on.
Yes. It also works on the other side with investments that they have.
Figure out your net worth. If you liquidated everything, that's what you'd be doing.
So you might not know it, but your city, county, school district might be investing in money market funds, stocks, or mutual funds.
That's
that
true.
Aren't showing up on the budget.
They invest. How do you like that?
And it's held in a bucket that you're never going to find without looking at the CAFR.
And even there, it's 50-50 sometimes.
Well, that's true.
You might have to ask somebody which bucket that is.
Right.
There's a hole in this bucket, dear Liza. Yeah, well, fix it, Henry.
There's a hole in the bucket.
So you may have to get a different Charlie bucket to get to look at that. So,
Yes.
So, I mean, and again, all the things you're going to find there. Like the best, Jay, was the special assessments. And I want to explain that just a little bit. Cities have the ability to reconstruct a street and levy that separately on your property taxes. They don't have to.
Right.
And this is, again, where I call for being a charter city, and I call for the charter to spell this process out. Because that can happen. You can outlaw that.
Yes.
The best way to do that is through a charter.
Yes.
It's not through city code because code can be changed. Charter is much tougher. So if you're city, for example, and a county can do this, by the way, they typically don't, but they can, because county roads typically don't get reconstructed to the homeowner. And in Crystal, they started back in the mid-90s, I want to say.
Yeah.
Crystal being a suburb that boomed after World War II. Mm-hmm. Many of the roads were about 40 years old and an end of what government calls their useful life.
Right. And we'll talk about
that's another scam. Let's talk about it right now because that's another scam.
Yes.
You could have an office chair that is perfectly fine, but it's at the end of their useful life, so they'll just replace it.
Right.
They'll throw it away and get a new one.
Might not be anything wrong with the chair.
maybe not. Chairs last a long time if they're maintained and people don't wrestle with them and throw them through windows, and 600-pound people don't sit on them.
And in fact, I mean, it goes beyond the office equipment. Going back to Crystal, this was kind of before the new group took over. But remember, over at the softball fields, there was a fence slated to be not repaired, but
Torn down and rebuilt.
Yeah. And did anybody inspect the fence to see if it was any good? No, not until Julie Deschler, council member Julie Deschler, went over, looked at the fence, and said, "There's nothing wrong with this fence." You know, and it's
it was in Ward 4, so yes,
she
didn't live very far from it. Yeah,
no, and so all of a sudden, well, now the city has an opportunity to save some money by not replacing a fence that doesn't need to be torn down, but that they don't ever do it.
Yeah, they voted to replace it anyway.
Yeah.
Well, there's the other issue too. I remember with police cars,
right,
that they were replacing police cars at 60,000 miles.
Yes.
Now their reasoning was resale value. That's what they claimed. Well, we can get resale, blah 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 blah. I don't know whether that's true or not. It's to me, I'd take 2 more years over getting an extra grand selling something. That's just me. But it took a Herculean effort to get that pushed out to 80,000.
Yeah.
But you may have, I mean, it's 60,000. Just think about that. 60,000 miles. A perfectly good police car is just torn up and replaced.
Yep. They're not cheap. When you think of all the modifications that's needed to make it a squad car with compartments for firearms
and door locks
and
they are not cheap. That equipment is not cheap at all.
It's not like going out and buying a Ford Taurus.
I used to drive a Ford Taurus.
I had a couple of Tempos, worst cars ever.
Really?
Oh, hated them.
So now, what's your brand of choice then? I mean, what do you think the best cars you've owned are?
The best that I've owned, as far as
that you'd buy another one. You know, like you didn't have a lot of problems with it, and you'd.
I mean, I know people are going to hate this because it's not an American car, but my Altima is good. I like it.
My wife drives one.
As far as
by the way, most Nissans are made here.
Yeah, that's true. As far as just loving to drive, my Jaguar XJ6, my 83 Jaguar XJ6 was my favorite, but it had its issues. It was very, there was a lot, and it was way ahead of its time with relays and all this kind of stuff, and you never really knew what was wrong. So, but from a pure enjoyment standpoint,
Interesting.
But as far as reliability and working the way it's supposed to, I mean, I've really enjoyed my Altima. It's probably the best that I've driven.
I'll tell you a car I wish I could have pushed off a cliff. Pontiac Grand Am.
Oh, really?
I had one it was like the first, I was in college, and then after that, like a year after that.
Yeah.
And I never had more problems with something. And the car wasn't that old. 5 years, 6 years, maybe. God, did I have problems with it.
Oh, boy.
All I wanted to do was just take a bat and beat the hell out of it. That's all I wanted to do. But I'm a truck guy now, so I can't even imagine owning a car.
It was hard. I mean, I had an SUV, went back to a car, and that's kind of a tough transition.
And maybe the worst thing I ever drove, I'll confess this 25 years after the fact, but my family, my parents were the typical 90s family that had their maroon minivan. That thing was hellacious.
I had a couple of minivans in my day.
I mean, it wasn't the ugly child molester van, but it was just the stupid with the sliding door and the My
That's not
mom,
the greatest.
don't put anything in it, but we'll use it to haul everything because everything
Right.
was too dirty. My baseball stuff couldn't go in it but how are we going to get to it doesn't matter. You can't bring that dirty crap.
I don't know what I hated more, my Ford Tempos or my Mercury Lynx. Oh, that was a terrible car, too.
Jay, that's tough.
Yeah.
Maybe we should give police departments Ford Tempos. Maybe that's what we should do. You can drive around in those.
Yeah, they wouldn't catch nobody. I'll tell you that.
Go rob a bank and get out. Okay, so where the hell were we here? Oh, CAFRs.
Yes, we're talking police cars.
Well,
yes.
I want to go back, though, to the special assessments.
Right.
Because so when this program was put in place, I want to say it was 1994, 5, 6, somewhere around there. They divided the city up into 16 sections, I want to say, and had a schedule for when they would be done. Now, there was a method to the madness, which I found out much later. Spreading out the projects got them some free money.
Yeah.
See, cities know how to scam. You talk about welfare recipients knowing how to scam the system. Government knows how to scam itself.
Oh, they're masters.
These projects, and one of the benefits of this is municipal street aid. And you can only get so many dollars over so long of a period of time. That's why they do 2 or 3 projects and take a year off.
Right.
They weren't giving anybody a break. They were letting the funds rebuild.
Right.
So let the money come back. So that was one of those things that they did. They started on I want to say the south. I want to say it was the Winnetka Hills area where it started. Kind of made its way north, and 20 some odd years later, about 2017 ish, maybe. When did your area get done? You were one of the last ones.
I was,
Jay.
I think, the
Second.
last
Oh,
one.
were you the last?
Or was I second to last? Maybe I was second to last. I guess the other side of the VFW maybe was last.
Is that called the Skyway, or is that you?
I'm Skyway. Although I think everything around the airport was that.
I think you're right. I think across Bass Lake Road, it's called the Twin Oak area.
Yes.
Yep. So, because I know my old house was in the North Lions
Yes.
block or whatever. So, yeah, you may be where you might have been the last one for the street reconstruction. Now, those projects cost tens of millions of dollars. Levy your property. Okay. This includes businesses and so on and so forth. And if you don't pay it immediately or by a certain date, you will have an annual charge with interest.
Yes. What the city does is they go out and they write bonds to cover the work. In
Right.
most cases.
They don't have the money.
Right.
But they can make it up. It's called a general obligation bond, which is backed by the full faith and credit of a government entity. Translation, we can tax the blank out of you. I mean, that's the translation.
Right.
Government doesn't have it, they go get it.
And they're very good at that because we don't keep them in check. We don't know.
They're good at all the bad stuff. Why are they always good at bad things?
I don't know. It's just so easy, I guess.
So, that program went through, and like I said, it was tens of millions of dollars.
Yes.
But if you wanted to find it, you could only find it on the CAFR. Here's another thing.
Yes.
You mentioned buying cop cars. And this is why it's so confusing. You buy a police car, and they take the depreciation, all the things that a business would take.
Yeah.
But all the operating expenses of a cop car go on the budget.
Right.
The gas, the oil changes, the, new tires. It's not something, if it needs a new battery or anything like that, that's on the budget.
Right.
The cost of the car is on the comprehensive annual financial report.
Yes.
And then they've got their police car fund, and they got their street sweeper fund, and they got funds in this thing too. If they want to build a new building, that is something on the CAFR. Operating that building is on the budget.
Right.
Now, I know we're making it sound simple, but folks, it is not simple.
It is not. CAFR breaks down like this. First, you have the introductory section, which talks about just the demographics of the area, and
there's some good stuff in there.
There is some good stuff in there, and then the next section is the having a brain
statistical. Or is that
That's
the financial
last one.
and then statistical?
Financial section, yes. And so that gives you your overviews. Now, the nice thing about this, it'll tell you total amount of money that they have, total amount of money that they owe, total.
Broken down 60 different ways.
But it'll at least give you some historical information as well, so that you're able to see over a period of time, are they spending more than they have in the past? Are their obligations greater than they were? Or are they keeping costs and spending more under control, which is almost never the case? And then you have the statistical section, and in the statistical section, that's where it breaks it down fund by fund by fund, along with historical information as well.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that there is a requirement, but I think there should be.
Yeah.
A requirement that they go back a certain amount of years. I don't know that they have to.
Right.
But I remember Crystal, I'll say this for them, they were going back 5 years on everything, even back before Mayor Adams and the new council took over. Mm-hmm. So you could go back and see, if you were back in, say, 2011, you could go back to 2006 and see the way the funds or the tax levies or whatever have gone. So, but I don't know that they have to do that.
Right.
And my guess is if they don't do that, there's a reason.
Yeah.
There's a reason they don't do it.
Right.
It may not be all the gooder.
Yeah, it may not be. I don't know. But so you've got those 3 sections of the CAFR. And so learning to break that down.
Yeah, and by the way, I should say in the statistical section, one of the things to really look for is a bond schedule.
Yes.
Because there's different types of bonds they can use too. Mm-hmm. It's another thing. There's something called a lease revenue bond. Basically, what government can do is anything that brings in quote unquote revenue, they can use a lease revenue bond, which is just a different type of bond, different interest rate. There's pros and cons. I don't want to get into the pros and cons of it.
Right.
But for example, if they want to build a liquor store, they can argue that revenue from that liquor store, this is how toll roads got built.
Right.
That they argue that the tolls will pay for it over time. But if you build, say, a police headquarters, it's not revenue generating. So you can't use that. You have to use a general obligation bond. And I believe that there is a supermajority maybe needed to pass them as well. Because, and again, I don't know all the details there, but there are different types: general obligation and lease revenue.
Right.
So just again, the reason I mention that is they may have different schedules. Mm-hmm. You may see that a GOB, general obligation bond, or lease revenue bond. They may have different lengths, different interest rates, and if they do, that may be one reason why.
Right. And so, and before we jump off into that, because I do want to go into debt a little further, your CAFR, well, where a budget is January 1st to December 31st, a CAFR is based on the fiscal year.
The state fiscal year.
The state fiscal year, which is different. And so you don't have these coming out by the end of the year like you do with a budget. They come out by the end of June every year.
Yep. Watch your June council meeting. I know you'll be on vacation or at the ball game or up fishing, but that's that also is a state requirement though by the auditor's office. So even though our state auditor doesn't do a whole lot,
right?
Not sure she's worked 40 hours since she was elected, but that is something that is out of their control.
Right. But yet, there are a lot of entities that aren't putting out CAFRs. Like some cities, we've really had to dig to find that information. And sometimes we see parts of it maybe included with the budget, but not called a CAFR.
Yeah,
and
and I don't know. There may be state laws with that. Maybe states of a certain size might be required to do more. I don't know why that is. My guess is that they have it. They just don't publish it. They don't think they have to.
Right.
And so...
And you can always ask your city or county clerk or whoever, is running things at the school district, hey, do you have this?
Unfortunately, you have to typically, and I'll say this too, you have to file something and they'll get back to you when they get back to you.
Right.
It's not like you walk in and they'll Xerox it off for you.
Right.
You may have to actually file, I don't know what it's called, freedom of information or something.
You might. Some places will have copies ready to hand out, but
some places might charge you.
Yeah.
Like Crystal.
Yeah.
I had to get out my credit card the first time or actually I think it was my debit card, but the first time that we dove into things. Because I don't like looking at stuff on a computer. I like printing it out.
Right.
I don't mind it so much now, but at that time I didn't. And it costs money. They didn't give it to me.
Right.
You want the city code, you're going to pay for it. It's like Back to the Future. You want a Pepsi Pal, you're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
Tab, I can give you a tab unless you order something. So, I mean, so it my guess is that these places have that information. They've just, some of their websites blow. Some of them, just, I think in a city of 500 or 800, I think they just don't advertise it.
Right.
Unfortunately, because I think it's unfair to say, well, my city's small, it doesn't need, this. They should always go above and beyond what is required. Let me give you an example. There's a state law. I remember learning this when I was on the Planning Commission, that if something's going on at a location, everybody within 300 feet, 350 feet has to be notified.
Yeah. If
you live 351, you will not be notified.
That's correct.
See, and that's always like, come on.
They always do the bare minimum, don't they?
I can remember a guy one time in Crystal wanted to split his lot. He had a large lot. He wanted to sell one of his lots or something. He had like a huge yard. I don't remember. I went there physically and looked at it. And I remember people within 350 feet were talked about, but 350 feet's not that far. I mean, that could be a block,
right?
Less than a block.
Yeah.
So
typical lot size is probably around 100 feet.
Yeah, for sure. So that's not, especially in square footage.
Yeah.
You might have 50 feet of curb. So just think, 6 houses down, I guess that person's not affected, even though they live on the same street.
Right.
Nobody goes above and beyond what they have to. That's just one thing I always know. So 8 people were notified about it.
Right.
The rest of the block wasn't.
And that's when they can bring in things like, oh, we talked to the neighborhood. And,
that's right. We had a public meeting. Where the hell were you?
Yeah. Right.
Even if you showing up probably wouldn't have changed anything.
Right.
They just always have that.
They just don't want to listen to you. That's all.
No, they got the decision made already.
Right.
That's what they have. Already made up their minds. They're just,
Yeah. But there's some things that get even more complicated. I mean, and we're talking about some of these things that show up. Let's talk about hidden taxes for a moment. Comprehensive finance. Things, like we say, your property taxes show up on the budget. However, there are other ways the government can take money from you. And we'd like to call these things hidden taxes because you don't realize it, but the government's taking your money. I mean, really, a tax is any time the government takes your money. That is the essence of a tax. It's not just Here's what I pay in my income tax, and here's what I pay in my property tax. No, whether it's, the county taking wheelage taxes or whatever, there are a million other ways that they get you.
Right.
Isn't that right?
I mean, sure. And I mean, an assessment is probably the number one.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's not on the budget. They don't talk about it. Yet you ask somebody who's had a $5,000 special assessment if that wasn't a tax.
Yeah. It's a surprise tax.
Well, and then add the interest on it.
Yeah.
I mean, remember, they bond it, so they have to cover the bond plus the interest.
Right.
And they can't do that if you just pay the principal.
They don't like that. They don't like when you pay right away.
They certainly don't. They'd rather screw you than do that. But I mean, franchise fees are a hidden tax. They're on the budget, but you find them at the end of your electrical bill.
Right.
The little charges there, and they just kind of hope you don't notice.
Right. And most people think that's just a fee being charged by the electric company or the gas company or the cable company, and that it's not actually charged by the government, and it's a pass-through tax.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, there's another one, which is your water bill. I mean, your water bill, like I said, they can move funds around.
Uh-huh.
So your water bill can go up $20. That $20 doesn't need to be spent on water and sewage.
Yeah.
It can be taken. Hey, we got to cover, the extra, toilet paper in the bathroom. Mm-hmm. We're going to take it from they don't have to do that. Now, some cities, like I said, try not. And I don't know that it's always great to dedicate something. I mean, like I said,
right.
It can backfire on you. But it's not all going in one place and out one place.
No, and franchise fees are a great example. How, this is going to be used for our roads. That's what they say in almost every instance. We need to charge these franchise fees because the right of way. These companies are using the right of way on these roads, and we might as well get paid for it. But it's going to go back into our roads. Well, it can go anywhere they want because it's going in the general fund.
Right. And I would say something, too, that also is a charge on churches.
Yes.
Because churches don't pay taxes.
So they're taxing your tithes.
So that's a way to get them. And they charge school districts. A lot of people don't know this. That's
taxing your taxes.
Yeah. So the money that you're sending, some of that money ends up in the city's pocket.
You're getting doubly taxed. It's
a tax on your tax. It's crazy. But that's a way, it's just another sneaky little way for the government to get money. And they're constantly raising those.
Yes.
They're constantly jacking them up, hoping that, again, you're not going to notice that little extra couple bucks that you're paying all the time. Yeah. I mean, if they billed you for a year of franchise fees like they did property taxes,
right,
I think people would be way more up in arms about it.
Right.
Instead of breaking it down, they always break it down to the lowest common thing. I remember the school district; it's a latte a day. I always remember that as kind of their marketing, their sales pitch.
Right.
So I mean. But, the hidden to me, jacking up licenses costs are a hidden tax because those taxes get passed off onto the customer. Mm-hmm. You raise a liquor license by $1,000. The person owning that liquor store or that bar and restaurant is not going to eat it.
Yeah.
They're gonna figure out how to make up for it. They're gonna figure out where they can get that $1,000 back.
Right.
And so chances are you as the customer are the ones that are going to have to pay for it.
Yes.
So it's kind of the best way to look at it is it all comes from you.
Yeah. Well,
what about your money?
What about tax abatements and tax increment financing when it comes to development? You end up as a resident covering the cost of what would come in taxes from these developers instead of having them pay it. So that's a tax on you.
Yeah, and then it's paid back in increments.
Yeah.
But TIF, which is based on a lot of assumptions, is another part of CAFR. It's another place where that's the only place you'll find that. Mm-hmm. A city will write what's called a TIF district, and then they will give I would argue, favors almost always to large companies.
Corporate welfare.
Yeah, it is corporate welfare.
Absolutely.
And a tax abatement is even worse. That's an outright, you don't have to pay it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of schools of thought about this. One is that it's more visible to people if you do an abatement and they know exactly what you're doing versus sliding it in the back door.
True, but either way, it isn't fair. Either way, it's you have to pay taxes and your neighbor doesn't.
But all these big corporations and developers expect this. I mean, if they're going to build in an area now, I mean, that is the expectation that has been set. We deserve this if you want us to come and build here.
Yeah, it's I don't know how to break that cycle. I mean, it's going to take scores of local governments to do that.
Yes and no. I think if you're able to cut some of the red tape to get people up and running faster, that, if you get them making money, that's a good thing. Cut down somehow, fight some of the environmental assessments or, things like that are going to get a business or a development to open their doors sooner. That might be something that it is attractive to them.
It could be. I mean, that's possible. I still argue that it isn't fair that the big, and I don't mean to be Michael Moore here, but
right.
You're never going to get a tax abatement for anything you do.
That's true.
It's kind of like these big, huge companies who don't need this, are the ones that get all the breaks.
Yeah.
And then they turn around and they donate to candidates. How much light rail money did Mike Opak get when he ran? I mean, it's to me, it's just all it's about is favors, corruption.
Oh, absolutely.
And you're right. That is the expectation now, though, that you're going to get some sort of break for going there and building, even though it's your job to go there and build.
Yeah. I mean, great example of something that we had found in all of our research that we do out in Buffalo. There is a senior living complex, and found out that the developer of that complex, who does not live in Buffalo, they somehow gave money to the mayor's reelection campaign. And
yeah, in the real world, that's called bribery.
yes.
I mean, I believe in the First Amendment, but it's not like somebody who doesn't live in Buffalo would cut a check to somebody all the time. I mean, if I gave money to a police chief with the expectation I was getting something for it, I could be arrested and so could he.
Yeah. But it's out there. I mean, we're not making this up. It's out on her campaign finance report.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's something that she doesn't advertise.
No. No, I'm sure not.
Yeah, but it is corporate welfare. I mean, I hate to say it, but it is. And we ran into this in New Hope, where they build luxury apartments right by the golf course. There's like a 6-year period where they're not paying property taxes.
I know. Yeah.
And the argument is
expensive development.
Yeah, but the argument that they make is, well, we enhance the value of it so that when we do start paying, we're paying way more than what we would have been.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. How many residents have moved out of the area and still had to cover that portion of taxes for them, and they're not in the community anymore?
Well,
they don't ever see a reimbursement of that.
Well, and it's just, to me, it's just more money for government to spend.
Yeah.
You're just going to spend more. It's just this constant drive for more money, more money, more money, more money.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever they have to do to get it, they're gonna do.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, the big problem that I have is what if that place fails? I always say this.
Yeah.
Let's say those luxury apartments would have bombed.
Right.
Who's on the hook for that development? Who's on the hook for those property taxes?
Well, maybe they could just do like the last place and light it on fire so that they can tear it down and build something else.
A little cookout, have a little cookout, burn those. I don't find those TIF papers. I didn't sign them. They were burned out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The people are on the hook for all of it, and the developer just gets to walk away with writing off their business losses and move on to the next project.
Business and government get together.
Mm-hmm.
The people just get effed. I mean, no matter how you slice it or dice it, if business and government are in bed together, look out.
Yeah.
I mean, look at all these woke corporations right now. They get together with the media, big tech, and it becomes just a monster. I mean, just a monster on its own. I mean, you can't fight. How do you fight it? You can't fight it. You can't.
Well, I think there's probably some ways, but I mean, the problem's even bigger because when you take in the issue of debt, and this is tricky because you can't just look one place. When we look at a city's debt level, that really only speaks about the face value, if you will, or the maturity amount of the bonds. The principal. So if, say, for a project, let's say they're building a new, what have you,
hockey rink,
and it's going to cost $10 million.
And nothing in government costs less than 8 figures.
Right. So this $10 million ice rink they want to build doesn't really cost $10 million.
It doesn't?
When they write a bond. No. You have the debt of $10 million, but then you have the interest to pay it back. And we found when we were going through this with Crystal and the Public Works building that there was this argument about, well, this is how much this costs. This is going to be $20 million. Well, no, this is how much the interest is going to be on this. Oh, nobody talks about that. Well, maybe we should start talking about that.
Yes,
and that's why he ultimately lost re-election. But
we won't see.
Yeah.
We won't say the names here.
We won't say the name of Mark Hoffman. I mean,
your cash I'm borrowing.
Yes,
the greatest line ever.
Oh, thank you for giving us that. And we still on our YouTube have that old commercial we ran. If anyone wants to go listen back to that,
it was a good one. And,
it was a good commercial.
I got nothing against Mark either, but it was the greatest quotes, the greatest thing we ever did.
Yeah,
greatest thing that ever happened was Jim brought a tape recorder into the meetings.
Yes,
it was honestly because we wouldn't have that 2-3 years earlier. Just say this.
Yes.
That when you look at debt too with the bonding, remember it kind of works like any other kind of loan. The longer you have it, the higher the interest rate and the more you pay in interest. It's kind of like taking out a car loan. You take out a 4-year loan, a 5-year loan, whatever. Your payment and your interest level will be affected by that.
Yes. And that's what they tried to argue with us is, when somebody buys a car, they say, I bought it for $8,000, not $12,000 with the interest. But that's a terrible argument.
Well, it's a bad argument because we're paying the bill.
Right.
And the final bill is what we pay it, not what it's. So the building costs $10 million, but we paid $15 for it.
Right.
It's a $10 million building, but it costs us $15.
Yeah. Well, and as we found out with this Public Works building, the people we helped came in and paid for it all in cash and saved $10 million in interest payments.
They had the money sitting around.
I know.
They saved for this. Credit to them, by the way, for it. And then when time came to have it, they wanted a bond.
Yeah. Well, the interest rates are good. That's what you'll hear. The interest rates are good. Well, interest rates are going to start going up.
Well, interest rates, schminterest rates.
Right.
If I have saved if I saved a bunch of money, I don't run around charging a bunch of stuff on my credit card because the interest rate's low.
Right.
Okay, so
right.
It's an argument that you should kind of roll your eyes at from the beginning.
I mean,
why have this fund? Why have this fund if you're just going to bond when you get there?
And what's going to happen if there's a downturn in the economy, and there will be at some point, and you have too much debt?
Oh,
I mean,
you haven't think about it personally.
Yeah.
People going through inflation right now.
Right?
Their paychecks they may be making more money.
Yeah.
But that money their buying power isn't increasing. Well, you don't have something saved up, you're going to feel like right now. I just saw a report that wages over the last year are up about 5% nationwide.
Yeah.
Inflation's up 7.5%.
Oh,
what that means is
that's
you got
under the new numbers, not under the old.
I think that's not right either.
Like about 13.
Yeah, and because I don't think inflation's taking gas prices into account and a few other things either. That means you're worth 2.5% less. Okay,
Right.
it doesn't mean that it just look. Finances shouldn't be so complicated. It just shouldn't be.
Right. But it is. I mean, and let's look at this. I mean, with debt levels, again, bringing up Buffalo.
Buffalo.
They have a whole bunch of debt.
We're not talking about Buffalo, New York.
No, we're talking about Buffalo, Minnesota. What was it? 70 million.
It's a lot.
70 million in debt,
and $40 million in planning.
$40 million of new planned debt as they pay off this old stuff. Imagine what the interest payments are on that over time. That's just principal.
Well, and I'll say this: their current bonds are not scheduled to be paid off till 2040.
Right.
So they're going to be paying bonds and interest no matter what. No matter who wins an election, no matter who. That's the thing about bonding, too. You've screwed everybody over for the next 10, 15. Put it to you this way. Bring it back to Crystal. When the new majority took over, they were stuck with the phase plans that were still being paid.
Yeah.
They were stuck with the ones that still hadn't. You couldn't do 90% of the city and then leave the rest.
Right.
You had to finish it. So the mill and overlay projects, which they tried to bond for, and it got stopped because that was just the way they always did it.
Right. And Crystal, according to Mayor Jim Adams, will be debt-free in 7 years. 7 years.
Yeah,
they said it could not be done.
Who's they?
Everybody around him.
I know. I always like to say that. Who's they?
And with other people we've worked with. They've come in and said, I want to have a debt-free city. And the staff has told them, you can't do that. That's impossible. But yet it's being done.
It's not possible. I love that.
I know.
It's not possible to not pay for, to have stuff that we have to have stuff that we have to pay for stuff that we don't have the money for.
But figuring this out isn't easy, though, Andrew. You've got the principal and you've got the interest, and they're housed in different places.
Of course, the debt. Well, yeah, you'll see something debt service, which is the interest. That'll be on the budget.
Yes.
So that interest, now the principals is where the bonds get paid. But the interest, you got to get that from somewhere.
Uh-huh.
Where do you get it from? To see that debt service number at 0, I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
Ever. In any budget I've ever looked at. We'll hopefully, Crystal, one day it will be that way. But
yeah,
I've never seen that once. I've never seen the debt service at 0. And I should say this, too. You want to talk about hidden taxes. I mean, you mentioned like the wheelage tax and stuff at a county level.
Yeah.
There are other kind of county things to look out for.
Yeah.
School district. One is the operating, the other is called deferred maintenance. Now, I don't know that every district has to break it down like this. I know the large ones do. But again, it's those big construction projects.
Right.
Those big, we're going to revamp the school. We're going to blah, 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 blah. That is not a budgetary thing.
Right.
That goes in their version of a CAFR, which is deferred maintenance.
Yes.
So, again, there's two different budgets, and they don't talk to each other. So, again, just another head-scratching, eye-rolling.
Counties have multiple ways of getting money from you, too.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're authorized here in the cities. They have a countywide sales tax.
Yeah.
Cities can do this too, only with the state's permission.
Right.
But there's that 1/4-cent tax here in Hennepin County. That transit tax.
Right.
Even though the CTIB has been disbanded, we're still paying the tax to operate the
absolutely. Metro
Transit stuff.
Yeah. And that's it. They have a railroad authority.
They have a housing authority. They
Yeah.
have 3 different levies. This way, 6 ways through Sunday to get your money.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know what? Here's the thing. I just wonder, are they ever going to run out of ways to think of? I mean, what could they add next? I mean, what could they add next?
How about the bicycle sales tax?
It's
The BST.
That's part of my platform. They can't steal my idea. But don't you think that's a good idea, though? I mean, everything's thrown onto drivers.
Right.
Let's have bicycles pay for their own.
Pay for their own lanes. Yes, I like it.
I'm going to have a toll road, too, for bicycles. We're going to have a toll road, I think.
Yeah.
Everything. So they'll pay their fair share. That's my thing. Pay their fair share.
What you need is like one of those, Johnny Knoxville things. Like if they try to skirt around the bucket and not pay the toll, like a big arm comes out and knocks them off their bike.
Oh, man.
No.
Watch them all go down like dominoes.
Oh.
Bicycle sales. That's right. That's me for governor with the cynical party.
Yeah.
So,
Who knows what they will try to tax next? And I don't want to give them any ideas, but if you think that they have come up with a full complement of ways to tax you, they will find new ways, and I believe that they will try to increase your property taxes and things like that. They can use it as they could find ways to tax you if you don't retrofit your home with green technologies.
That's also in a point of sale. I mean,
right.
Which some cities have, some cities don't.
Right.
There is a grandfather clause a lot of times, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's one thing. That's a de facto tax. If I have to do something to sell my house or bring something up to compliance, or somebody's paying for it. It ain't free.
Nope.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. That's how the green stuff. Nobody's going to pass a law. Here's the thing: you got the Green New Deal. The Green New Deal has never been actually proposed in legislation. It's never had a hearing.
Actually, I thought it did once, and it got voted down, didn't it?
Maybe,
Or
but
they asked them to bring it up. Maybe it didn't come up.
Yeah, they might have tried a procedural thing, but it's like, why aren't we debating this?
Yeah.
And the reason is it's going to be implemented other ways, executive orders and on the city level.
Oh, yeah.
We saw that with cap and trade. That never passed, yet
No.
we're seeing it implemented all over the country.
Absolutely, we are.
I mean, you're going to see that at the local level for sure. You don't have, this is how, it's one of the ways they're going to get rid of like coal furnaces and stuff. And they're going to demand that you can't sell your home. You can't move that title unless something else is done.
Right.
So, sure, you're going to see all that.
Yeah, and you can see that with car sales too. Oh, the emissions on this one isn't so good. You need to do XYZ.
Miles per gallon isn't good enough. They've already talked, but Judge is already talking about raising where, we're still recovering from something. You're demanding that actually we're recovering from something that I argue government caused. You're arguing, you're trying to get the economy moving. You're trying to force car makers to make electric cars that nobody wants.
Right.
And California is going to lead the way, Jay. The state with rolling electrical blackouts is going to lead the way in electric cars.
Yes.
That's the
makes
biggest.
No sense.
That should be laughed out. Texas couldn't even do it.
No.
That should be laughed out of any discussion.
No, if everybody went and got electric cars, our electrical system would not be able to maintain the load that it would have to carry to charge all of them.
Yeah, and what's that from? Coal, natural gas, nuclear. That's 90% of our gonna. It's not possible. There's not enough wind or anything else to to get that done. And I'm not against other forms of energy if they're cost effective and if they're out in the free marketplace.
Right.
Which of course we know they're not.
No, they're subsidied to death.
They still can't go anywhere. But I'll say this, if you
Yeah.
have a government subsidy, what's your incentive to make a better product?
None.
I mean,
There is none.
I mean, if Henry Ford could have went to the see today, somebody like Ford would go to the government and say, "You got to subsidize my Model T because I can't make it for the average person."
Right.
So then the assembly line never would have been built. The car would have never been improved. Efficiencies would have never. I mean, that's
Right.
why this stuff doesn't go anywhere.
No, and that's what happened. GM got bailed out by the government. They came out with a Chevy Volt, and it started on fire. That's what happens.
What's the other one? Escalade, is that part?
That's GM. That's Cadillac. Yeah.
Okay, but is that is that a hybrid or was the Volt the hybrid?
Volt was all electric, I think.
Oh, was it? I thought
Yeah.
it was okay. There's a hybrid car, and I can't remember what. I don't know that it went anywhere.
Yeah.
I don't know what it means to be hybrid. I don't know if that.
It means you're running two engines, and one's electric and one's gas, and it's mainly run off of the gasoline engine, the combustion engine, and then it's supplemented by the electric engine.
Okay,
So
interesting.
yeah,
I don't know that that's gone anywhere since then, but
I mean, there's a fair number of hybrids out there. but
okay. Well,
I had one for a while. It was okay.
really, what was it?
My Ford Escape.
Okay,
That
Escape.
I had had,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, that was a decent truck.
All right. Well, I mean, bottom line, folks. I mean, I know this might have been boring here, but I mean,
Way to sell the podcast.
well, no, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's minutia, but it's important minutia.
Yeah.
It's you people thinking about running for city council or school district or county commissioner or something like that. I mean, this is the stuff that, I mean, it's not stuff that'll necessarily win you campaigns, but it's stuff, boy, you better know it when you get in. Or,
it will keep you in office if you do a good job with it.
yeah, and if you just from staff and so on and so forth,
Yeah.
man, just you're not representing your citizens, and that's I don't like saying stuff like that, but it's the truth. You're derelict in your duty.
Yeah.
To the oath that you take. So
Right.
It's just, I don't know.
And also, we've seen these people that, these parents that go to like Loudoun County School Board and create a ruckus because they don't like what's going on in the school district. Well, if you learn how to read a budget, learn how to read a CAFR, and learn what's really going on financially and where they're wasting money, where they're taxing you where you didn't know they were taxing you, it would give you the impetus to go and create a ruckus at your local city, county, school board, and maybe demand a little more accountability, maybe demand a little more easy to digest information, and we would see some things happen where maybe more cities and counties and school districts would want to try and become debt free, or they would try to reduce the level of debt that they have, and strengthen the fiscal state of where you live.
And I'll say this too. If you do that, you will know more than the average council person.
Yeah.
I'm not joking when I tell you that. That you will know. You will know more, no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
So, I don't know, Jay. It just, the whole thing of government finance, we've spent a lot of time interpreting this stuff. And I want to say it only gets worse.
Yeah.
I just feel like it. I want to see a city budget or CFR that I'm like, oh my God, I could have voted for that.
Yeah.
Not sure I've seen a whole lot of those.
No,
Not
I
too
haven't.
many.
Oak Grove had a good budget.
They did.
Year
Crystal
after year,
does now.
Yeah, it's much better.
You want to go to New Hope or something, you can find something to poison yourself
Pay a
with.
21% increase or whatever.
My goodness. And remember, that's on top of they have franchise fees and all that stuff, bonds, TIF districts. Luckily for them, unluckily for the rest of us, they got Ann Rest to throw in some bonding money for their new pool. Good state use of, so they got the state to go into debt.
Right.
By the way, how much do you think the bonding bill will be at the because we're going to have to break that down this year like we do. We've done that several times, and you know what? I'm open to spending some of the surplus. This is again where I disagree with my friends on the right. If I can spend money so we don't have a bonding bill, I take that.
Yeah.
If I can spend a little money so we have some school choice, I'm doing it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm okay with that stuff.
I'd like my surplus money back.
Yeah, but again,
yeah.
You can if you give the surplus back and then bond $3 billion.
Yeah, which is dumb.
Yeah, which is the level they're talking about right now.
Yeah.
You are the money that you're paying in interest is canceling some of that surplus.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like, okay, let's do something so we don't have to bond. I mean, I don't know. I'm just I'm not on the right anymore, and I'm not on the the whole give the surplus back, which has never worked politically. I think there has to be a plan other than that. There's got to be something that counters what the governor is doing and saying. And I think the MNGOP falls well short. They have no coherent message on it. Walz has come out with his stuff, and you can poke holes in it all day, but a plan's a plan.
Yeah.
No plan is no plan.
Right.
And no coherent message, I think, hurts the Republicans. I do.
Well, my plan is this. Give our money back and no bonding. You've spent enough.
Yeah.
Just work with what you got.
Well, and also I think this is the perfect time to go through the transportation department and be like, okay, we're gonna prioritize roads. We're gonna prioritize state stuff, not sidewalks in Minneapolis, not bike paths in War Road where you can bike 2 months out of the year. It's a perfect time to do that too. And by the way, where are my hearings on Jan Malcolm?
Yeah, not happening. They're probably too expensive.
Yeah, I mean, where are they? I want Malcolm X brought up there and forced to answer questions. Yeah. She's been there for 4 years with no Senate oversight. They have abdicated their constitutional duty.
Absolutely, they have.
That's why I love being part of the cynical party. No more Team Red. No more none of that. I really enjoy that, Jay.
It is good to be independent, isn't it? Call the balls and strikes the way you see them.
Now, what do you consider yourself now?
Independent.
You do? Okay.
Oh. I have been for a long time. I would consider myself a conservative libertarian, small L,
Yeah.
Independent. Definitely not a Democrat.
Okay.
But I definitely would vote with the Republicans more often than not. But there are a whole bunch of things they do that I don't agree with either. Because, meaning all the nothing that they seem to accomplish. So it's...
Yeah, it's going to be interesting when I become governor how I'm going to finagle all that.
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, if you just in a total fantasy world, Jay, if I ever won as an independent, everybody would expect me to do what you're saying, to side with the Republicans most of the time.
And I think you would on conservative issues where, because it's not that you're not conservative, it's that you just don't want to be identified with the Republicans.
Well, it depends how you define conservative or liberty-minded.
I'm what you call a classical liberal.
Yeah.
Which that the whole meaning of that changed
during
the progressive.
Yeah, it's been
period.
hijacked, is what it's been. Thomas Jefferson called himself a classical liberal.
Yeah, that's what I would consider myself.
But see, here's the thing. I would imagine every time. How do I put this? Every time I think about something like that, however unlikely it might be, I think I'd be more adversarial with the Republican side.
I would want to take them to task.
Yeah, but I'd kind of be like, okay, for 20 years we've sat around and you people have said the same things, done none of them. Mm-hmm. Whenever they tell me, I just kind of would probably just be like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. That's what I mean. I wouldn't want to side with them and they're doing nothing or making excuses for doing nothing. But if they were actually going to take care of constitutional carry, pro-life measures, all of that stuff, I'm right there.
Yeah, I mean, I would be on the pro-life side for sure. But I would love to sit down with them and say, okay, I want to defund the Met Council.
Yep, absolutely.
Where are we on that?
Yeah, and that's where I have my problems with them too.
I don't know is that a conservative position, libertarian position, even liberal position, because I think there are liberals who maybe favor transit and all that, but don't like that there's a...
Yeah, well, we know that to be true.
Yeah, true, we do.
A lot of these cities have a very much a love-hate relationship with the Met Council.
I do. I think that's true. Comprehensive plans.
Yeah.
I think you'd be surprised in some allies that would definitely vote for reform. Maybe not elimination, but I do think you'd find allies in reform. And I think it'd be different if it didn't come from a Republican. If it came from a third party and said, okay, look, you people don't like this, you people don't like this, I don't like this.
Yeah.
If elimination is not an option, which I think would be the constitutional way to go,
yep.
What do we do to control this monster? Maybe you have to incrementally eliminate it.
Break it up and get rid of some sections of it right away. Keep the wastewater and
the original intent, which was the wastewater.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. See, we could sit around and solve the world's problems all day.
Look, Jay, I've got a job for you when I become governor. I'm not sure what it's going to be yet. I know MnDOT commissioner was the one that I was going to put you at, but I'll think of something.
Yeah.
I'll think of something. You'll be on the payroll somehow. Don't worry about it.
All right.
All right, my friends. It's that time again. I know it's bittersweet because it means the end of a show. But we'll be back next week, and you get the words of wisdom from jet flying, limousine riding, wheeling, dealing, son of a gun, Community Solutions own Jason Bradley. Take it away.
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate that. I know we went for a while on this one, but there's so much to finances, and it's hard to understand. And like I say, it took us a long time to get to learn all about it. And hopefully we were able to lay it out in a way where it makes sense to you, and this was useful for you to be able to go back to your own city, township, school board, county board, and take a good look at what's actually being spent, what's actually being borrowed, how much you're actually paying in taxes. We have a lot of things to consider. I mean, things are changing in the world, and our cities need to become secure places that are financially stable. We've got things that we can't control going on at an international, national, regional level. And so we got to take and look inward a little bit and say, okay, so how do we, in our schools, our cities, our counties, get control of this? Well, I think we have to start the finances. Stop borrowing, pay off debt, right? Not spend more than we got. There are, having a good budget, not making things so complicated that we don't know what end is up, not having all these hidden taxes. I mean, the list goes on and on. But if we had people in office that were willing to take a stand for those things and make some changes, you know, we would be in a much better place. I mean, we're watching California implode right now, and you got cities that are going bankrupt, and they want bailouts. And who wants that mess? I don't want that mess, and I don't think you want that mess. I think you want to be able to say that, you know what, our city's on good footing. Our county, it's on good footing. You know, we might not be able to afford everything we want to do, but there's nothing wrong with that. You know, if you can't afford to do everything you want to do, there's nothing to say that we should just go spending willy-nilly and get every frilly thing that we want. No, and have a measured approach to spending, to have a measured approach to debt. In my humble opinion, I love where Crystal is going. If they keep the same people around 7 years, it's going to be debt-free. And they've worked hard at that. Now, I know there are other cities. Big Lake is another one trying to become debt-free. It can be done. And they will show the world the way. When everything else hits the fan, and believe me, hard times are coming. And we don't know when they're going to hit. We don't know what it's going to mean. But for those of us that are left holding the bag, if you have cities that need to pay back all of this debt, and they have this debt repayment program, but all of a sudden a ton of people lose their jobs and have a real hard time paying property taxes, and maybe they move out, maybe they start renting, whatever it is, you know, that might leave you a little high and dry as a city trying to pay back some of that stuff. So you got to do it differently. You got to take in more than you spend. You got to spend in a way where there's not all of this stuff on the back end in debt, you know, with interest payments. You gotta not nickel and dime your people to death. You gotta be upfront with them about your spending, why you're spending it, and let them be able to have some feedback, for crying out loud. Because there are certain cities that say no, you know, you're not going to have any input into our financial numbers. You get to just deal with whatever we decide. And I don't think that's right either. So what do we do about that? How do we change the financial destiny of our cities? Well, it's going to take good people standing up and running for those positions. But it's also going to take us asking questions, going to City Hall, going to citizen input times with the county board or the city council or the school board, and saying, hey, I need you to explain this to me. And they might not do it right then and there, because a lot of times they'll just say, well, the citizen input time is just for public comment, and we don't discuss those things during the meeting. Well, then you put them on the spot and you say, you know what? Then I expect you to get back to me. And if they don't, you visit them again, and you visit them again, and you visit them again. And when you're sick and tired of visiting them, maybe you think that the time is right for you to run. Maybe, or to get on an advisory commission. And those are things that you have to consider with where we're going. We cannot continue to allow the same people to make the same choices. We need different people. And so it's just a matter of time. But you know what? If we don't ever do it, if we don't ever give up a little bit of our comfort for what only certain people have the capability, the mindset to change this stuff, to not listen to staff, then we're just going to keep getting the same old thing. But we can't. We can't continue to walk down that road. So here's what we're going to do. The time is now. And we need people to step into this with us. We're training a ton of people this campaign year. We want to train you too. Just get a hold of us at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That is commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. We've got the knowledge and the experience to give you the strategy that you need to be super competitive and win your races. If you're looking to get on an advisory commission, ask us what's the best way to do it. We'll tell you. If you want help starting a podcast, starting a blog, some other form of media to hold people accountable, hey, we've done it. We've been doing it. This is our 6th season here on this podcast. So we know what it's about. So we just ask for your help. This is going to be you spreading the word. This is going to be you standing up and saying, no, I'm done with it. You can do this. You can do this. And if it's something you're concerned about, if you're listening to the show, you're the kind of person that needs to be involved at some level. So let's talk. Because we love you, Minnesota. But now it's your turn to